to talk about potential of India and why stock markets are booming today is a common theme. But 25 years ago, to identify the potential of what India could do was a rare insight. And that rare insight, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala and the top team of Rare Enterprises was able to identify. How can one create wealth? What is the golden thread which makes and differentiates an unknown investor from an unforgettable investor? And it's my privilege and it's my honor to welcome on this 12-part series of Masterclass with none other than Utpal Sheth. I've known Mr. Sheth for nearly 2 decades now. More than a fine investor, he's also an extraordinary human being. His word is his bond. Utpal bhai, so nice to have you on ET Now. Very kind of you. We are absolutely honored to welcome you on ET Now. And it's so nice that on a public forum, you would be talking about the secrets which you've identified and what has made you an real unforgettable investor.
I think that unforgettable investor is Mr. Jhunjhunwala. There is so much that I have learned from him, and there is so much that he has taught not just me but a lot of us about not just markets, not just investing, but also about life, that we can never thank him enough for that. He's been a friend, philosopher, guide, and much more to me over the years. I must say I was privileged to have had this journey with him, and he's actually the unforgettable investor. Over these 25 years, we've invested in public markets and in private equity. We've done different kinds of transactions, right from MBOs, LBOs, M&As, and so on. But through all of those, there are a few fundamental building blocks that you will find through all of those investments. And it's not that every investment has turned out to be a bed of roses. We've had our share of lemons, and which is part of the game. We've learned from that. And you know, Rakeshji was, I think, a genius, because there are very few people who are great traders and great investors. Rakeshji was one of those. He was a great trader and a great investor. I don't have those skill sets, but I have been fortunate to learn a lot from him. And I've also been fortunate to have other great mentors during my career from whom I have learned. So I've just tried to put together all my learnings and want to share that in the public domain.
How would you define investing? Everybody claims that investing is simple, but it is not easy. Investing is, some would say, buying something cheap. Some would say buying the future. Some would say buying a piece of business. What is investing? You
know, there's this brilliant book called Infinite Games, and that really portrays the difference between investing and many other activities. I think investing is an infinite game. In a finite game, let's say any sport or any a football match or a cricket match or whatever, the number of players are defined, the rules are defined, the time frame is defined, and the objective measurement is defined, and you're competing with someone. In an infinite game, you are competing with yourself, and there is no finish line, right? So I feel it is important to understand that investing is an infinite game, and you can't play an infinite game with a finite mindset. So you have to inculcate infinite mindset to play this infinite game called investing, and therefore you have to learn to think long term.
When you say long term, how would you define long term? Is it 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plus? What is the definition of long term?
See, I am sure it is different for different people, but for me, long term is in the vicinity of 5 to 10 years. I would say closer to 10 years plus. And there is an advantage of thinking in that time frame, because most of the players in the financial markets are actually thinking relatively much less than that. My guess is 80 to 90% are thinking in the first 1 year only. There are few who are thinking 1 to 3 years. There are even fewer thinking 3 to 5 years. But I think less than 1%, probably 0.5%, thinking in the 5 to 10 year bucket. And given that we all talk about investing being also a compounding game, right? Where you compound not just returns, but you also compound knowledge and you compound relationships. So, in investing, if you believe that investing is a compounding game, then the parabolic impact also comes beyond the 5-10 year time frame. So, I think there are many advantages to being in that bucket where the competitive intensity low and the outcomes are greater.
Would you say to be a good investor, the biggest differentiation you need is the time horizon? Because like you said, that whether it is long term or whether it is time, that is perhaps the biggest edge.
See, I think to be a great investor, and all the great investors that I have observed have had a very different mindset. One of the elements of that different mindset is the ability to think long term, and not just think long term, act long term as well. Okay? But that's not the only attribute. There are other attributes.
You mentioned that time horizon is an edge, but not the only edge. Long term investing is also a function of a lot of mental models. What are these mental models which you would like to share with us?
Okay, before we get into specific mental models, I think it is important to realize why mental models and mental frameworks are an important tool of building any skill set and building a learning culture, so to say. We've all read about Charlie Munger and his mental models and frameworks, but I find that most investors have that mental model and framework at a subconscious level, and it's never articulated in that sense. I feel it is imperative to think of both mental models and mental frameworks in this investing journey and keep building, because these think of it as mental block, as building blocks, and you have to keep enhancing your model.
So, you've introduced the word terminal value. What is terminal value? If I may ask you a very simple, straightforward question.
The way terminal value is thought about is a mathematical formula in a discounted cash flow framework. And I feel that does not do justice to terminal value. Even mathematically, in that discounted cash flow formula, terminal value ends up being 70 to 80% of the total value that you attribute to that company. However, I think Eric Smith said it very nicely that we tend to overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term. Therefore, terminal value is all about the long term, and we will end up underestimating terminal value. So, in this technique of terminal value investing, terminal value is not a mathematical concept. It's a conceptual framework, and that conceptual framework is not a certain defined number. It's nebulous, it is dynamic, it is distant, right? What we think is the terminal value today, or anybody thinks, is not going to remain static. There are multiple factors impacting it, both external factors and internal factors. They will keep changing. Does that mean that the terminal value will keep changing? Surely. However, we are not looking for small changes in terminal value. What we are looking for are big changes in terminal value. And some people define that big changes in terminal value as value migration. However, both terminal value and value migration has to be captured in your mental model for investing. And that is why we advocate this methodology of terminal value investing, which is different from traditional value investing, which is different from maybe other styles like growth investing or momentum investing. And again, it is not my contention that this is a better style than the others, it's just a different style of investing.
Have you used terminal value investing over the years, and have you benefited from that, and have you applied it, and will you continue to apply it?
Terminal value is something that we have been working on for many years now. You will see that that is reflected in the duration of our holdings in many companies. And it is not appropriate for me to go into any of those specifics, but I would just say this, that the average holding period for us was really long, and I would say 10 years is the mental framework that we used to have for long-term investing.
Could you, if you could just talk about an example, maybe at a macro level, maybe at a sector level, maybe at a company level, that how did you identify the terminal value or the potential? Terminal value, if I superchange it with potential, will that be right?
See, an unrealized potential is of no consequence to anyone. So, along with that potential, there is also a probability that you have to establish of how and why that potential is going to be realized, right? And before I drill down into that, let me just say that there's this friend of mine who is also a great investor. His name is Chris Begg, and I would like to quote him here. He says, "Success does not lie in managing complex uncertainties, but in realizing unrealized simplicities." I think it's a very profound statement, and which is why terminal value concept that we are talking about is a simple concept, and which is why I love that framework rather than a mathematical formula, which is a complex framework. It's like you are standing at the base camp of Mount Everest, but the skies are cloudy and visibility is poor, and you are not able to see Mount Everest. But that does not mean Mount Everest is not there. The Mount Everest is there. You are at the base camp. You cannot measure the length of Mount Everest from there, but you know it is taller than most dimensions. So, even if you don't know the precise height of Mount Everest, it does not matter. You just need to know that it is very large.
बेटा कहता है, पापा बीमा ले लिया होता तो आज हो जाता ऑपरेशन।
अब हमें कौन बीमा देगा 70 के बाद?
तुम लोगों ने सुना नहीं, 70 साल से ऊपर के सभी वरिष्ठ नागरिकों को 5 लाख तक का इलाज मुफ्त में मिल गया, समझो। बस वोट के दिन पोलिंग बूथ पे जाओ और कमल का बटन दबाओ, मोदी को फिर से लाओ।
कमल का बटन दबाएं, भाजपा को जिताएं।
Papa, where does this rainbow start?
Let's find out.
New Taigun GT line, styled to wander.
Volkswagen.
टाइम्स नाउ नव भारत दे रहा है सुनहरा मौका लाखों के इनाम जीतने का। देखेगा नव भारत जीतेगा भारत कॉन्टेस्ट। आसान से सवालों के जवाब देकर आप जीत सकते हैं कार, बाइक, आईफोन, लैपटॉप और शॉपिंग वाउचर। देखो, खेलो, जीतो। टाइम्स नाउ नव भारत पर।
आप जैसा कोई मेरी जिंदगी में आए तो बात बन जाए।
Jio Air Fiber?
टीवी चैनल्स की बहार, ओटीटी की भरमार, कनेक्ट करो कुछ भी, वाईफाई ऑलवेज तैयार। बात बन जाए, बात बन जाए।
जारी रहेगी भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ जीरो टॉलरेंस की नीति। ये है मोदी की गारंटी। भारत को विश्व की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी आर्थिक शक्ति बनाएंगे। ये है मोदी की गारंटी।
So we started with the advantage of time, which is one edge. Second is the whole concept of terminal value investing, where you identify perhaps the potential of the company based on your understanding of the landscape, whether it is macro, whether it is ability of the management, or whether it is the size of the opportunity. But its terminal value is more than that, right? Like you said, that it is not a mathematical formula. It cannot be interpreted with a P multiple. It is not the enterprise value of a company, or it is not the replacement cost of a company.
So Nikunj, let me actually use the framework that this actor Matthew McConaughey, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, he said in his speech while accepting the Oscar award in 2014. He says everybody in his life has someone to look up to, which is God or your ancestors, someone to look forward to. In his case, he said it was his family, but most of all, someone to chase. And when he was asked, who is it that you are chasing? He said, I am chasing my hero. And he was asked, who was the hero? He says, my hero is the best version of me 10 years from now. He said that he was asked that question when he was 15. So at the age of 25, the same gentleman walks up to him and asks him the same question. Are you your hero now? And he says, no, because the one that I am chasing has also moved 10 years in the last 10 years. So I am still chasing the best version of me 10 years from now. In the same way, we are continuously chasing this terminal value, and that terminal value keeps moving as we keep moving in time. In the conventional value investing framework, one is seeking a value arbitrage, really speaking, where you are saying that I want to buy at a price at time t0, which is, let's say, today, as compared to the value that I see at time t0, which is also today. I am looking to take advantage of that gap. However, in terminal value investing, we are actually pursuing a very different value. We are saying I am comparing the price at time t0 to, let's say in 2024, to the terminal value that I perceive at time t10, which is in this case 2034. So long as that gap is very wide, and I do not need to know the precise quantum, right. As they say, it is better to be vaguely correct than to be precisely wrong. One pursues that terminal value, which is 10 years out. 10 years is an arbitrary number. it's long enough for me. Maybe somebody else might want to think of a different time frame. But when you do this, then your mind is at peace, where you are not focusing on the next quarter's earnings, nor are you focusing on macro factors, change in interest rates, change in growth rates, tax collections, this, that and the other. You are focused on that terminal value.
If I could encourage you to perhaps talk about, let's say, a macro example or a company specific example, local or global, how would you just capture this for the viewers?
So Nikunj, I don't know if you recollect, but sometime in June 2002, Rakesh and I wrote an article for Economic Times, which was published in his name, about how he foresaw a structural and secular bull market in India. That was way back in 2002.
Now we get goosebumps if we read it.
Right? In his mind, that was the terminal value of India, right? He was pursuing that terminal value. He was not thinking that I will make a 30% return here and a 20% return there. He just took a real long-term view. The words that we chose, structural and secular, are important. He could have just used the word bull market. But I think very consciously we chose those two words, structural and secular. And again, apart from this example, let me give you some other example also, which is also in the public domain, and I am not naming companies here. But one of the best investments for rare in the public market space, Rakesh ji invested in that at, let's say, a price X. But over time, as his conviction kept on increasing, he kept on buying at higher levels as well. What is most noteworthy is that he bought more of that company, not just at higher prices ordinarily, but he bought it, more of it, even at 30x of his first purchase price. Most people actually sell at 30% upside. He was buying more at 30x of his first purchase. That is the power of his conviction in the terminal value of that company.
So is terminal value more like a call which is not derived on mathematics, it is not derived on P multiple, it is purely your imagination on how you perceive things could go for that trend, for the country or for the company. So then it's like you painting a picture in your mind which may hold true, which may not hold true.
True. You are very right, Nikunj. So, but I would go beyond imagination. Imagination is free flow and does not have to be anchored on trends and does not have to be anchored on some inferences. Here, the terminal value that an investor should conceive of should be on the basis of some trends, on the basis of some inferences, on the basis of some analysis. Because at the end of the day, you are betting on the probability of that terminal value, not just the terminal value, but also the probability of that terminal value playing out. Because no matter what you imagine, if that terminal value does not play out, it does not help you as an investor. So I would say probability of that terminal value is equally important.
But you spoke about an article you had co-authored with Mr. Jhunjhunwala in 2002 and 2003. There's another article which you had co-authored, and that was being co-authored in 2014 when the BJP government came back to power. And the choice of words that time was also secular, it was also structural. It's 10 years from now. If you have to write that article again, would you still use the word secular and structural for India for next 10 years?
Yes, I would. I think India is an idea whose time has come. More importantly, I think India probably has the right to win within the emerging market asset class to be, India should be identified as an independent asset class within the emerging market buckets, going towards the more developed market buckets. So therefore, I feel that the terminal value of India is still phenomenal.
So from small cap to mid cap, it has happened in the last 20 years. From mid cap to large cap will happen in the next 15 years. Is that the terminal value potential of India?
See, I think it's not fair to classify India as either a small cap, mid cap or large cap. I would say that there is a destiny towards which India is headed, and that destiny will hopefully change India as we know it, or as we have known it in the past. All the building blocks seem to be in the right place for India to achieve that destiny.
Now, before we wrap this edition, let's use a headline: Terminal Value of India, article co-authored, or actually this time not co-authored, but an article which is authored by you. How will that article begin? How will that article end? If you have to define India's terminal value in 2024, how would you define it?
In 2024?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, it would still be co-authored.
Okay.
Because I think Rakesh ji is still with us in spirit. Second, I would say that this structural and secular bull market of India continues. The probability of that terminal value of India 10 years from now or 20 years from now is even higher than the probability which we could have attributed to India when we wrote those articles either in 2002 or in 2014.
We started the show remembering India's most famous investor, India's favorite investor, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Let's end this show by remembering him again. Which would you say, which is your favorite quote of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala? Let's call it the RJ original. Something which is not in the public domain, which you know.
Okay. So I think this quote is in the public domain, but I would still quote it because it is the most powerful quote of his that remains with me, and that is that your patience may be tested, but your conviction will be rewarded. And the reason that this quote means so much to me is that it is part of this terminal value investing framework. Okay? You will find those words, patience and conviction, as components of this terminal investing framework.
They say in investing you should never lose patience, but I am losing my patience because I want to know the secret to identify the terminal value. But our viewers have to be patient because that is coming in the next episode.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.